Okay, so what is this whole myth that a separatist mentality that black women choose and chose their statistically better stance in society than black men? I really don't understand that, because I guess black women are choosing to be educated at a higher rate than black men, and black women are choosing to be employed at higher rates than black men. I guess black women are choosing to live longer lives than black men. And I really don't understand that myth. And I'm going to go into why I don't understand that myth. Ooh. Okay, so first of all, what I noticed with a lot of these funny men that say this really have a very, very, very limited understanding of black women's history. And, I don't really fault you about that, because that's our society, or our society as a whole tells you that half of your community isn't worth a damn just because half of that community has titties and a coochie, so you gotta disregard what she says unless she's saying what you want to hear. So, that's, you kind of get that from the whole Eurocentric thing that women aren't important anyway. And I wouldn't go as far as to say that could have been happening before we even got to America. But in history in Africa, it tells us that wasn't always the case. Anyway, I'm kind of digressing. So first, this whole higher employment rates thing, and black women are choosing higher employment rates. When you think about it, black women have always had employment in the public sphere, have always had to have employment in the public sphere, was never given the opportunity to be stay-at-home moms and stay-at-home anything, because they've always had to bring in some money. When you think about it, where the black man was and where he was back then, think about what type of employment was available to the black man. It's like, unless he was somebody who was working with a strong black entrepreneur, or he was in a black town where he made a good size amount of money where he can take care of his family, he wasn't really somebody who took care of his entire family alone. The woman did have to work. If she wasn't working outside the home, she was somebody who was watching kids at her home. She was domestic, even since, I'm not even gonna go there. She was a domestic. She was a washwoman. She did hair. She did hair in her home, or she had a beauty shop somewhere. Black beauty shops were the black community's way into the middle class, when you think about it. And it's like, black women always had employment. Always had to. The black home never supported just one person having employment. And even if you follow, try to say, oh well, black men, where can you pull out that black men were making enough money to support a whole home by themselves? So so black women always had employment. And then even when you think about the bus boycott, the Montgomery bus boycotts, there were mostly domestics that rode buses during that time, and women that rode buses, black women that rode buses and were getting screwed around and shit like that. And you look at that as an example of how many black women were actually working, because it took a black woman, Joanne Robinson, getting messed with on the bus for her first time, and she was like, oh hell no, and she went and got her shit together. She was like, I'm not dealing with this. But it was mostly black women that rode the buses, and domestics that rode the buses. So black women always had jobs, always. So we all know that the black labor market isn't really nice to black men until their factory jobs, or their jobs that are back then anyway, more so for people with that don't need more than a high school diploma. Nowadays probably don't need more than a college degree. Those are the jobs that are more so readily available to black men. You follow history. How history clearly tells us that. And so now we try to say that these jobs are better. Our black women have cool employment, better jobs, but the jobs aren't really that different than the domestic jobs we held about 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. Not really too much different, because you think about where our stands are and where we are in the social realm of employment. Most of us have administrative assistant jobs, or we're assistants, or we're nurses, or we're technicians, pharmaceutical technicians, or they're pretty much jobs that are help everybody else type of jobs. Filing, bookkeeping, database entry, those are still domestic jobs, quote unquote. And then higher education rates. What I know about the higher education thing and how education works and how education has historically worked in the United States, especially when black children were sadly integrated into the education that these white people give to their children. We all know that the education mostly works, and I forgot what author said this, wrote a book about it. Education works best for the young white girl and works worse for the young black man or the young black boy. We know this because in education, in the Eurocentric education in the classroom, you are to shut up and listen and take orders, pretty much, and regurgitate. You're not really to be challenged by somebody's rambunctiousness or somebody's culture or anything like that. So we see that. And with young black men, a lot of the teachers, or young black boys, a lot of the teachers don't really know how to work with young black boys. And young black girls kind of fit in the middle. Like, some of us are raised where we're okay to listen and go through how we're supposed to act in a class and stuff like that, as opposed to young black boys where they might be taught that shooting the dozens is cool and talking shit is cool between two boys, and then they might get in trouble by the teacher because the teacher doesn't quite understand this is a cultural thing, that these boys are going to talk about each other sometimes, or they're going to get into a little this, that, and the third. They don't understand. But the other thing that is like this whole myth that black women choose is this whole superwoman and independent myth. That whole superwoman myth is bad around the whole. First, it's bad to the black man, because the black man believes that if a woman is calling herself a superwoman, or somebody is a superwoman, that she doesn't need any help and that she doesn't need any assistance. And like, black women that take on that whole superwoman independent thing feel that they can take on everything by themselves and don't need assistance, when clearly we have been dying of stress-related causes, over-medicating ourselves, or are medicating ourselves in drugs and alcohol abuse and all types of stuff. And you see the amount of stress that black women go through because they have this whole superwoman independent ideal that is tossed across the board by black women, by black men, that really has a horrible effect. So that's why I say choose. Choose what? You think about who gets the employment. The white infrastructure, the infrastructure is still dominated by white people, white men. The infrastructure is still dominated by racism. So black women chose what? And then, black women chose to receive assistance. It's like, you think about what black women in their power to change it. Come on, like, choose what? I don't understand that whole notion of choose. What's your idea of a choice? So, I feel that's completely silly. When we both figure out how much we have both been screwed by the system, and we stop trying to say one is better because they have what this Eurocentric society has said what they should have to succeed here, and then they're better than us and they're choosing to be better. It's like, nah. get off of it. You know what I mean? That doesn't make a lick of sense. History would tell you it doesn't make a lick of sense.